The air in La Fleur Sauvage was a delicate blend of truffle oil, aged wine, and the hushed murmurs of the city's elite. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto polished silverware and crisp white tablecloths, reflecting the subdued glow of expensive jewelry. This was not merely a restaurant. It was a sanctuary of exclusivity, where reservations were whispered secrets, and the average bill. Among the impeccably dressed patrons, a figure of particular notoriety held court. Thorne was a titan of industry, a man whose name was synonymous with ruthless ambition and unimaginable wealth. His empire spanned tech, real estate, and luxury goods, and he moved through life with an air of unshakable superiority. Tonight, he was entertaining a group of equally powerful, equally self-important associates, their laughter echoing a little too loudly in the refined space. Thorne, a man in his late 50s with a perfectly coiffed silver mane and eyes that seemed to perpetually assess net worth, was in his element, holding forth on market trends and the failings of lesser mortals. Across the room, gliding between tables with an almost ethereal grace, was Simone Dubois. Simone was one of La Fleur Sauvage's most experienced waitstaff. Her uniform, a simple black dress and white apron, belied a quiet dignity and an acute intelligence that missed nothing. She was in her early 30s, her dark skin glowing under the soft lights, her movements efficient and silent. She had worked her way up from humble beginnings, putting herself through college with evening classes, and her dream was to one day open her own small, authentic Creole bistro. For now, she served the city's wealthiest, observing their peculiar habits with a detached amusement. Simone approached Thorne's table, a polite smile fixed on her lips, menus held elegantly in her hand. She had served Thorne before. She knew his type: demanding, dismissive, and prone to making assumptions about anyone he perceived as beneath him. He barely made eye contact, gesturing vaguely for her to hand out the menus. "Good evening, gentlemen," Simone began, her voice soft but clear, imbued with the subtle lilt of her New Orleans heritage. "Welcome to La Fleur Sauvage. May I present our evening's selections?" Thorne, without looking up from his phone, waved a dismissive hand. "Just give them to us. And make it quick. We have important matters to discuss." Simone distributed the thick, leather-bound menus. They were entirely in French, a deliberate choice by the restaurant's owner to enhance its Parisian authenticity, and most patrons, even the ones who spoke little French, managed with a combination of polite fumbling and discreet glances at their phones. One of Thorne's associates, a portly man with a florid face, squinted at the menu, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Alistair, what in God's name is coquille sing?" he grumbled, fumbling with his reading glasses. Thorne finally looked up, his gaze sweeping over Simone with a sneer. He saw her dark skin, her simple uniform, and immediately made his judgment. "Oh, for heaven's sake, Gerald," he scoffed. his voice loud enough to carry 2 nearby tables. He then turned his full, contemptuous attention to Simone. "She can't even read," he declared, his tone dripping with condescension, as if Simone were a decorative, uncomprehending fixture. "Just tell us what the usual rich people food is. Lobster, caviar, something obscenely expensive. And make sure it's prepared correctly, unlike some of the simpler establishments." A hush fell over Thorne's table. His associates shifted uncomfortably, some casting apologetic glances at Simone. The insult hung in the air, thick and palpable. It wasn't just a slight. It was a blatant, racist dismissal, delivered with the casual cruelty of a man who believed his wealth entitled him to treat others as less than human. Simone's polite smile did not waver. Her eyes, however, which had previously held a detached amusement, now sharpened, a quiet fire, igniting within their depths. She took a slow, deliberate breath, her posture straightening, not in her soft, lilting English, but in impeccable, fluid, and utterly flawless Parisian French. "Monsieur Thorne," she began, her voice clear and resonant, each syllable perfectly articulated. "I assure you, coquilles Saint-Jacques refers to pan-seared scallops served in a creamy white wine sauce, typically gratinated with cheese and breadcrumbs. It is a classic, rich, and indeed, obscenely expensive dish." She paused, her gaze unwavering as Thorne's jaw slowly dropped. His silver hair seemed to stand on end. His associates stared, their eyes wide with disbelief. Furthermore, Simone continued, her tone now laced with a subtle, cutting edge that only a native speaker would truly appreciate. "Our homeward thermidor is prepared wild, caught Maine lobster, tableside with cognac, and finished with a delicate Mornay sauce. And for those who prefer something less simple," she emphasized the word with a pointed glance at Thorne, "we offer a filet de boeuf rossini, a prime cut of beef tenderloin topped with foie gras and black truffle, served with a Madeira reduction." She then turned her attention to the portly associate, her expression softening slightly. "Monsieur, if you would prefer, I can explain each dish in detail, or perhaps offer recommendations. Our sommelier, Champierre, can also suggest a wine pairing that would complement your choices perfectly." The silence at Thorne's table was absolute, broken only by the faint clinking of cutlery from other diners. Thorne himself was a statue, his face a mask of utter shock and humiliation. His perfectly coiffed hair seemed to droop slightly. He looked as if he had been struck by lightning, his carefully constructed world of superiority crumbling around him. Simone, having delivered her quiet, devastating rebuttal, returned to her polite, professional demeanor. "Would you care for a moment to consider your selections?" Gentlemen, or perhaps you would like me to assist you with the menu. Thorn finally found his voice, a strangled, almost inaudible croak. No. No. That won't be necessary. We will just choose. He snatched the menu, pretending to study it intently, though his eyes darted nervously between Simone and his stunned associates. Simone simply nodded, her polite smile back in place, though a faint, "I shall return when you are ready." She turned and glided away, leaving behind a table of billionaires utterly silenced by a waitress they had so carelessly dismissed. The incident rippled through La Fleur Savage like a silent shockwave. Other waitstaff, who had witnessed the exchange from discreet distances, exchanged knowing glances. The kitchen staff, who had heard Thorn's loud, insulting remark, now wore smug grins. Simone, however, remained outwardly composed, continuing her duties. Later that evening, as the dinner rush began to subside, the restaurant's owner, Madame Dubois, a formidable woman with a sharp mind and an even sharper tongue. Madame Dubois was not just Simone's boss. She was a distant relative, a mentor, and a woman who had seen and heard it all in the high-stakes world of fine dining. "Simone," Madame Dubois said, her voice low, a hint of amusement. "I believe Monsieur Thorn found our menu particularly challenging tonight." Simone offered a small, knowing smile. He seemed to have a momentary lapse in his linguistic abilities. Madame Dubois chuckled, a rich, throaty sound. A lapse, indeed, or perhaps a sudden, profound education. "You handled yourself with impeccable dignity, and your French, it was a symphony." Simone's French was, in fact, flawless, because she had spent her formative years living in Paris with her grandmother, a renowned chef who had insisted on immersing her in the language and culture. It was a part of her life she rarely spoke about, preferring to keep her past private, especially in a city where assumptions about her background were often made. He deserved it. Madame Dubois continued. That man, with his arrogant, he forgets that true class is not about wealth, but about respect. You reminded him. It was merely a clarification of the menu. Madame Simone said, ever humble. Madame Dubois merely raised an eyebrow, a gesture that spoke volumes, a most eloquent clarification. The next few days at La Fleur Sauvage were subtly different. Thorn, surprisingly, he still dined with his associates, but his demeanor was noticeably subdued. He spoke in hushed tones. and when she approached his table, he would merely nod, his face flushed with residual embarrassment. He even, on one occasion, managed a mumbled merci when she refilled his water glass. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The story, however, did not stay confined to the walls of La Fleur's. One of Thorne's associates, a man named Mr. Davies, who had been particularly uncomfortable during the incident, had a conscience. He was a quiet, unassuming man, but he valued fairness and decency. He had been genuinely appalled by Thorne's behavior and deeply impressed by Simone's composure and linguistic prowess. Davies had a daughter, a bright, ambitious young woman named Chloe, who was struggling to find her footing in the competitive culinary world. She dreamed of opening a restaurant that celebrated authentic, regional cuisine, but lacked the capital and the connections. A few weeks after the incident, Simone received a call from Madame de Bois. "Simone, a Mr. Davies has requested to speak with you. He is a regular patron, and he seems rather insistent." Simone, intrigued, took the call. "Mr. Davies," his voice earnest and apologetic, immediately brought up the incident with Thorne. "Ms. Dubois, I want to express my profound apologies for Mr. Thorne's appalling behavior. It was inexcusable, and I was deeply impressed by your professionalism and your extraordinary command of French." Simone listened patiently. "Thank you, Mr. Davies. It's truly not necessary." "No, it is," Davies insisted. "Because of that incident, I realized something. I realized that true talent, true grace, often goes unnoticed in our world, simply because it doesn't come wrapped in a designer suit or a prestigious degree. My daughter, Chloe, she's a brilliant chef, but she's facing so many obstacles. She has a dream, a vision for a restaurant that celebrates authentic, soulful food, much like the spirit." He paused, then continued, his voice gaining a hopeful tone. "Ms. Dubois, I would like to offer you a proposition. My daughter is looking for a partner, someone with business acumen, a deep understanding of the restaurant industry, and a passion for food. Someone with your quiet strength. I would be willing to invest significantly in her venture, but only if you agree to join her as a co-owner and general manager." Simone was stunned. A co-owner? A general manager? Her own bistro, but with the capital and support she had only dreamed of. It was an opportunity that felt too good to be true, a direct consequence of an act of kindness. "Mr. Davies," Simone said, her voice filled with genuine emotion, "I don't know what to say." "Say yes, Ms. Dubois," he replied, a warm smile in his voice. "Say yes, and let's build something truly remarkable." The meeting between Simone and Chloe Davies was an instant connection. Chloe, a passionate and creative chef, was immediately drawn to Simone's calm demeanor. Her sharp business sense, and her profound knowledge of the restaurant world. They shared a mutual respect for authentic cuisine, a desire to create a welcoming space, and a quiet determination to succeed. Within months, La Table de Simone, a charming bistro celebrating Creole and Southern French fusion cuisine, opened its doors. It was a far cry from the opulent grandeur of La Fleur Sauvage, but it possessed a warmth, an authenticity, and a soul that resonated deeply with its patrons. The food was exquisite, the atmosphere inviting, and the service, under Simone's meticulous guidance. Simone, no longer just a waitress, now commanded her own kitchen, her own dining room. She still wore a simple black uniform, but now it was a symbol of her ownership, her hard-won success. She greeted every customer with a genuine smile, her eyes sparkling with a quiet joy. One evening, a familiar figure walked into La Table de Simone. It was Mr. Davies, accompanied by his daughter, Chloe. They were regular patrons, enjoying the success of their joint venture. "Simone," Mr. Davies said, his eyes twinkling. Simone followed his gaze to the entrance. Standing hesitantly in the doorway, looking remarkably out of place in the cozy bistro, was Alistair Thorne. He was alone, his usual entourage conspicuously absent. He looked older, perhaps a little humbled. Simona approached him, a polite, professional smile on her face. "Good evening, Mr. Thorne. Welcome to La Table de Simone. Do you have a reservation?" Thorne cleared his throat, his gaze avoiding hers. "No, Ms. Dubois. Good things about this place, and I wanted to apologize." Properly, Simone's smile soft. "There's no need, Mr. Thorne. That was a long time ago." "No," Thorne insisted, finally meeting her gaze, and in his eyes. "My behavior that night was inexcusable, arrogant, ignorant. You handled yourself with grace and dignity, and I was a fool." He paused, then added, "And your French was magnificent." Simone nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of his sincerity. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne. I appreciate that. May I have a table?" Thorne asked, his voice almost timid. "I'd like to try your food, and perhaps learn a thing or two." Simone gestured to a small, intimate table by the window. "Of course, Mr. Thorne. Welcome. And tonight, the menu is in both French and English, for your convenience." A faint, almost embarrassed smile touched Thorne's lips. "Thank you, Ms. Dubois. Thank you very much." As Simone led him to his table, she felt a profound sense of peace. It wasn't about revenge or gloating. It was about respect. It was about the quiet power of dignity in the face of prejudice. It was about proving that true worth lay not in wealth or status. and in the quiet strength of a woman who could not only read the menu, but could also write her own destiny. One perfectly articulated word at a time, La Table de Simone flourished, becoming a beloved culinary destination. Simone became a respected figure in the city's food scene, known not just for her exquisite bistro, but for her unwavering integrity and her inspiring story. She continued to serve, not as a waitress, but as an owner, a host, and a testament to the fact that true elegance and true power often reside in the most unexpected of places. And sometimes, all it takes to silence a billionaire is a perfectly pronounced French phrase.